Hello and welcome to the Watch Kaki channel, where we bring you all the good and honest watch reviews. Today's video will feature the battle of the nerds. Alright, so I've got this pair of nerd watches in front of me. On the left here I've got the Casio DBC32, and on the right here is the Casio AE1200. So both these watches, they are very affordable, they are not new releases, and the nicknames for these watches in this battle are the Nairobi, and this is the Casio Royale. So let me just explain to you a little bit on their nicknames. So on the left here, the DBC32 calculator watch, I've nicknamed it the Nairobi because the character Nairobi of the Money High series, well, she wore it until she was written out the script in season 4. And this one here on the right is the Casio Royale. The nickname is inspired by the Seiko digital worn by James Bond. I think it was Roger Moore's James Bond. He wore it in the 70s James Bond film, and fans were really quick to nickname this one the Casio Royale because Casino Royale, alright, it's a James Bond film, not the Daniel Craig one, but I think it's a Roger Moore version or something like that. So again, both these watches, they belong to the affordable range, nothing fanciful. Build quality is really low for both of these watches. They all feature all plastic case, and you can even see all these unsightly molding lines here, or mold lines. Not the most exquisite build. So take a look at their bracelets here. They are also very low quality, and these are like folded links, stamped or folded, and the clasp here is just basic. So it is the same with the Casio Royale, exactly the same, but they've added some sort of a double pin pusher clasp, but overall the build quality is still very basic. And for under 40 Singapore dollars, they really share plenty of similarities in terms of build quality, in terms of price points. And I'm going to do a really quick comparison to show you what I like and what I don't like about these watches. So I've zoomed in just a little bit for you to take a closer look at both the watches here in the review today. So both these watches, like I mentioned, they are really entry-level basic quality, but they can be bought for under 40 Singapore dollars. I must have bought the Nairobi for 36 Singapore dollars. I bought this one for $35 off the internet. So in terms of sizes, they're actually quite similar. This one here, I think left to right is about 40 millimeters, the AE1200, the Casio Royale, and it's the same for the Nairobi. I think left to right, the case width is about 40 millimeters, but this one here, of course, has a longer case length, and I would say this is more squarish, the Casio Royale, and this one here is more like rectangular and elongated kind of thing. And in terms of weight, you'll be surprised to find that the Casio Royale is actually slightly heavier. This one here comes in at about 90 grams, I think, and this one here comes in at about 63 grams. But in terms of wearability, I don't think you will find any of these watches to be very heavy, under 100 grams. On bracelets, I think such a weight is actually very manageable. And now we're going to kick off a series of comparisons, and we're going to see how similar these watches are. And to be honest, I don't really find a clear winner or loser between these two watches. So first up, we're going to talk about the legibility of both these two watches. So both watches, they feature positive display, and I'm very sure most digital watch fans will be very pleased to know that this is a positive display, because usually people will say that positive display is better for legibility. So I have no concerns or complaints on this. I think legibility on these two watches, they're just excellent. In terms of time telling though, I think the bigger digits for time telling on the Casio Royale here makes it slightly more legible. Alright, so you think there's an advantage to the AE1200, but in terms of overall information and data on screen, alright, so I'll just put these two watches this way. Alright, you can see at one clear look that it's the DBC32, the Nairobi, that has the advantage when it comes to a clear look at all the data and information, because over here they've got all things like day of the week, year, date, and all that written really clearly. Whereas for the Casio Royale, you only see the time very clearly, and the rest of the data, they're pretty small. So in terms of legibility, I would say it is a tie between these two watches. And the next category for comparison will be in terms of design. So these two watches, of course, they belong to the geek watch category. A bit like sci-fi and gadget watch kind of a look to these two watches. So let's just spend some time to talk about this one first, the DBC32, the Nairobi. Okay, so at first look, of course, this one here from the Databank series. Of course, it has that keypad, the calculator keypad, and in actual fact, this watch actually allows you to key in, I think, phone numbers or something like that, and it actually has about 13 or 15 languages for you to use. I'm not going to use any of those things. So in terms of design, I think this one here obviously wins in terms of geek level. So in terms of geek power, I will give this a solid 10 upon 10. Very unconventional design. It even has a sort of a slide off or a slide downwards here at the case side if you take a look here. So this is the case back, it's flat, and there's a slide downwards here, dramatic slide downwards, and thereby making this design very sci-fi, very radical. Okay, this watch is like, you know, taken straight out of one of those time traveling kind of movies, and 10 upon 10 in terms of geekiness. And when we take a look at the Casio Royale, this one here obviously has more of a classic looks to it, and it is like the classic Casio square look. So I don't know, I think the DW5600 or the G5000 G-Shock series probably are based off this design, or maybe their design language is about the same between these two series. So in terms of design, both watches are equally quirky in their own ways. Again, it's a tie between these two watches when it comes to design. The next category for comparison will be wearability. So I'm going to do really quick wrist shots over here. And in terms of wearability, you know, these two watches, they're not too big. So I would say anyone would fit these watches. And you know, the good thing about these watches is that they are so light. I think the ladies will also like to wear such watches. This one here, the Casio Royale, is about 40 millimeters left to right, and case length is about 43 or 44, so very manageable and so lightweight. Even with the metal bracelet, it comes in at under 100 grams. And here's a fake wrist shot of the Nairobi, the DBC32, on my wrist. So I can't really wear this watch anymore because as I've mentioned in the full review last year, this watch has been hijacked by my wife. She's the one wearing this watch these days. In fact, I've never worn it before, ever since buying it. So this one here, slightly long, but you know, take a look here, there isn't much of a lug gap or overhang. So I would still say these watches, again, they're so easy to wear, wearability is really good, and the ladies will definitely you know, like these watches. So needless to say, in terms of wearability, I will rate these two watches as equal, and here's another tie in this category. And lastly, we're going to compare some of the functions and features of these two watches. So they both have illuminator function. So this one here, if I'm not wrong, is operated via this button here. So you'll see this vintagey, warm kind of orangey light to it. Same goes for the Casio Royale. So yes, this one here is slightly on the brighter side of things, but overall they still have the vintage old school kind of illuminator function. Both these two watches, they have 10-year battery life. Okay, and like I say in all my video reviews, you've got a 10-year battery life, many things can happen in 10 years. So I would say this is really a plus point for these two watches. And in terms of water resistance though, the Casio Royale has got 100 meters water resistance. It is printed or stated in the product literature. Yes, you can see here it says water resistance to 10 bar. It more or less means 100 meters water resistance. As for the Nairobi, you know, I tried searching everywhere I could on the internet. No official word on its water resistance. So I'm going to say here that I believe this is just splash proof or minimal water resistance. So in this aspect, in terms of functions and features, I'm just going to give the nod, alright, a slight win for the Casio Royale in this category. So there you have it. That was my really quick shootout between these two geek watches. So we call this the battle of the nerds, or the battle of the geek watches, and as you can see, they're so similar, and there really isn't a clear winner or loser between these two watches. But in terms of wearing a watch, in terms of what feels or looks like a watch, I really think that the Casio Royale has the slight advantage in that aspect. It really feels more like a watch, whereas this one here feels more like a gadget or more of a conversation piece. Alright, so I know there are some people who really need the calculator function here. Alright, there are people who really use the keypad. I've got some viewers making comments in my channel that they do use the keypad every day, but I don't think there are many people doing that. So if you ask me for my personal preference to watch Lucky Andy, which one do you prefer? I would say my preference goes to the Casio Royale, but I don't regret buying any of these watches. I think they're just really good purchase for not a lot of money, 35, 36 Singapore dollars. So yes, they're not very well built. Both watches are made of plastic case, you know, and the bracelet here is just very rattly, very noisy. Okay, and just to illustrate my point here, the bracelet is actually very noisy even when worn on the wrist. Alright, so over here I'm not exaggerating anything, I'm just turning my arm this way and you can hear that it is already very noisy. But at the end of the day, I think you know, these two watches, they really deserve this strong cult following that they've built up over the years. And you know, if you're in the fans, I would say, you know, give it a try. You may actually like these watches. And this is the Watch Kaki signing off with George. Thank you very much for watching my videos. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.